The morning sun cast long shadows across the pristine lawns of Windsor Castle as Princess Charlotte adjusted the delicate silk ribbons on her powder blue dress. Today marked the annual Children's Garden Party, an event that brought together young members of various royal families from across Europe. At 8 years old, Charlotte had attended similar gatherings before, but this particular morning felt different somehow. There was an electricity in the air that made her stomach flutter with nervous excitement. Lady, her governess, carefully inspected every detail of Charlotte's appearance. The dress had been specially commissioned from a renowned London designer, featuring intricate hand-embroidered flowers along the bodice and a flowing skirt that seemed to dance with every movement. The fabric was particularly delicate, chosen more for its beauty than its durability, which would prove to be significant later in the day. "Remember, Your Royal Highness," Lady said in her crisp accent. "Today you'll be meeting Princess Sophia from Spain, Prince from Denmark, and several other young royals. The photographers will be present, so maintaining proper posture and composure is essential." Charlotte nodded solemnly. Though her mind wandered to the garden maze she hoped to explore with the other children. She had heard whispers from the staff about a secret passage that led to an ancient rose garden, and the prospect of discovery thrilled her more than any formal photograph ever could. The castle's east wing buzzed with activity as caterers arranged delicate finger sandwiches and petit fours on silver-tiered stands. Florists made final adjustments to elaborate centerpieces featuring white roses and baby's breath, while security personnel conducted their final sweeps of the grounds. Among them stood Commander James Harrison, the head of the princess's personal protection detail, a man whose watchful eyes missed nothing and whose reflexes had been honed through years of military service. Commander Harrison had been assigned to Princess Charlotte's security team when she was just 5 years old. In those 3 years, he had developed an almost paternal protective instinct toward the young royal. His own daughter was close to Charlotte's age, which perhaps explained the special care he took in ensuring not just her safety, but her comfort and happiness during public events. As the first guests began arriving in their gleaming black automobiles, Charlotte watched from her bedroom window with fascination. The circular driveway filled with diplomats, minor royals, and distinguished guests, all dressed in their finest attire. Children emerged from vehicles wearing clothes that seemed more suited for museum displays than playground activities, and Charlotte wondered if they felt as restricted by their formal wear as she did. The princess's lady-in-waiting, Sarah, entered the room carrying a small velvet box containing Charlotte's jewelry for the day. The pearl necklace had belonged to her great-grandmother and carried with it the weight of generations of royal tradition. As Sarah fastened the clasp, she noticed Charlotte's fidgeting. "Are you nervous about today, Your Highness?" Sarah asked gently, adjusting the necklace so it lay perfectly against the dress's neckline. "A little," Charlotte admitted. "There will be so many people watching everything I do. What if I make a mistake?" Sarah smiled warmly. "You'll be wonderful, as you always are. Just remember to be yourself and don't worry too much about being perfect. Sometimes the most memorable moments come from unexpected happenings." Little did either of them know how prophetic those words would prove to be. The grand ballroom had been transformed into a wonderland suitable for young guests. Tables set at child-appropriate heights displayed an array of colorful treats, while a small orchestra positioned in the corner prepared to play gentle classical pieces throughout the afternoon. Balloon artists and face painters had been stationed in various corners, ready to entertain the younger attendees. As Charlotte made her way down the ornate staircase, her hand gliding along the polished banister, she could hear the gentle murmur of conversation and the soft tinkling of teacups against saucers. The sound of children's laughter drifted from the garden, where some early arrivals had already begun exploring the carefully manicured grounds under the watchful eyes of their guardians. Commander Harrison positioned himself strategically near the main entrance, his trained eyes scanning the crowd while maintaining an unobtrusive presence. He had worked with the other security teams to establish clear sight lines and communication protocols. His earpiece crackled softly with periodic updates from his team members positioned throughout the castle and grounds. The dress code for the event called for garden party elegance, which translated to flowing fabrics, pastel colors, and comfortable shoes suitable for walking on grass. However, Charlotte's outfit, while beautiful, had been chosen more for its photogenic qualities than its practicality. The silk was gossamer thin, and the intricate beadwork, while stunning, created potential weak points in the garment's construction. Princess Charlotte entered the main reception area to a chorus of gentle applause. The assembled guests, a mix of adults and children, offered respectful bows and curtsies as she passed. She moved with the practiced grace of someone trained from birth in royal protocol, yet there was still an unmistakable childlike quality to her movements that endeared her to everyone present. Among the guests was renowned photographer Helena, whose portraits of royal families graced the covers of prestigious magazines worldwide. Helena had been specifically requested for this event, and she watched Charlotte with the keen eye of someone who understood how to capture both the grandeur and humanity of royal subjects. The formal receiving line proceeded smoothly, with Charlotte greeting each guest with appropriate formality while managing to inject warmth into each interaction. Her natural curiosity about the other children was evident, and she asked thoughtful questions about their homes, their schools, and their favorite activities. The Spanish Princess Sofia, in particular, seemed to delight Charlotte with stories of her pet horses and her love of painting. As the formal greetings concluded, the young guests were invited to explore the specially prepared garden areas. Charlotte's eyes lit up at the prospect of finally being able to move freely, though she remained conscious of the need to maintain her dignity while representing her family and country. The afternoon sun had grown warmer, and a gentle breeze stirred the fabric of Charlotte's dress as she walked toward the garden maze with a small group of young royals. Commander Harrison followed at a respectful distance, his attention divided between monitoring the princess's safety and coordinating with his team through subtle hand signals and quiet radio communications. The garden maze had been a favorite feature of Windsor Castle for centuries, its tall hedgerows creating a sense of adventure and discovery that appealed to visitors of all ages. For the children's safety, gardeners had carefully trimmed the hedges to ensure that adults could see over them, while still maintaining the illusion of mystery and exploration that made the maze so appealing. Charlotte led the group with confidence, having memorized the maze's pattern during previous visits. Her dress swished gently as she navigated the turns, the delicate fabric catching the dappled sunlight that filtered through the hedge tops. The other children followed eagerly, their voices filled with excitement as they discussed the possibility of finding the legendary secret garden that staff members had whispered about. As they approached the maze's center, Charlotte paused to point out a particularly beautiful climbing rose that had begun its spring bloom. The children gathered around her, marveling at the deep pink petals and breathing in the flower's sweet fragrance. It was during this moment of peaceful admiration that the first signs of trouble began to manifest, though no one noticed the tiny stress points beginning to form where the dress's delicate beadwork met the silk fabric. The adventure in the maze had filled Charlotte with joy, and her cheeks glowed with excitement as she led her new friends toward the promised secret garden. The group had grown to include 6 young royals, each eager to discover what lay beyond the maze's final turn. Princess Sofia from Spain walked beside Charlotte, chattering animatedly about the similarities between this garden and the ones at her family's palace in Madrid. Commander Harrison maintained his position approximately 20 feet behind the group, close enough to respond instantly to any situation, but far enough to allow the children their sense of independence. His trained eye noticed everything. The way Prince from Denmark seemed more interested in the garden's architectural features than its flowers, how Princess from Sweden kept stopping to examine interesting insects, and most importantly, how Princess Charlotte's dress was beginning to show tiny signs of strain around the decorated bodice area. The secret garden, when they finally found it, exceeded everyone's expectations. Hidden behind a curtain of ivy, an ornate iron gate opened onto a circular space filled with heritage roses, some of which dated back over 200 years. A small fountain gurgled peacefully in the center, surrounded by stone benches that had been worn smooth by countless visitors over the decades. "It's like something from a fairy tale," breathed Princess Sofia, her dark eyes wide with wonder. Charlotte beamed with pride at her friend's reaction. "Wait until you see what's behind the fountain," she said mysteriously, having explored this garden many times during private family visits. As the group moved deeper into the secret garden, more guests began arriving at the main party area. The adult attendees had been enjoying afternoon tea on the main terrace, but word of the children's expedition had spread, and several parents began making their way toward the maze to observe their offspring's adventures. Among those heading toward the garden was the Queen herself, who had arrived earlier than expected from a morning engagement in London. Her presence always elevated any event, and news of her arrival sent a ripple of excitement through the staff and remaining guests. Lady, who had been monitoring Charlotte's activities from a distance, felt a flutter of nervousness. The Queen's unexpected arrival meant that the princess's every move would be scrutinized even more closely than usual. In the secret garden, Charlotte had discovered that one of the old rose bushes bore a particularly unusual bloom, a sport that displayed both deep red and pure white petals on the same flower. She called the other children over to examine this natural wonder, her enthusiasm infectious as she explained the genetics behind the phenomenon in terms she had learned during her private botany lessons. "The gardener told me that sometimes nature surprises us," she explained, unconsciously echoing words her tutor had used. "This rose decided it didn't want to be just one color, so it chose to be both." As Charlotte leaned forward to point out the flower's unique characteristics, she failed to notice that the movement stretched the already strained fabric of her dress. The combination of the morning's activities, the dress's delicate construction, and the natural movements of an active 8-year-old had created the perfect conditions for what was about to happen. Princess Sophia, eager to get a better look at the unusual rose, accidentally stepped on the hem of Charlotte's dress while moving closer. It was the gentlest of tugs, barely perceptible, but it was enough. The overstressed fabric around the dress's decorative bodice suddenly gave way with an audible ripping sound that seemed to echo through the peaceful garden. Charlotte felt the dress shift and loosen around her shoulders. Looking down, she saw with horror that the entire front panel of her bodice had separated from the skirt portion, leaving her standing in what amounted to an elegant but decidedly immodest state. The beautiful hand-embroidered silk hung in tatters, and the pearls from the decorative trim scattered across the garden's stone pathway like tiny teardrops. The silence that followed was deafening. The other children stood frozen, unsure of how to react to such an unprecedented situation. Charlotte's face went through a rapid succession of emotions: surprise, embarrassment, and then a growing panic as she realized the full implications of her predicament. Commander Harrison's training kicked in before his mind had fully processed what had happened. In military operations, he had learned that the first few seconds of any crisis determined the ultimate outcome. Without hesitation, he stepped forward, removing his uniform jacket as he moved. His actions were smooth and practiced, as if he had rehearsed this exact scenario, though of course he never had. "Princess Charlotte," he said in a calm, reassuring voice that carried just enough authority to cut through her rising panic. "Stand perfectly still for just a moment." With professional efficiency and appropriate discretion, Commander Harrison draped his jacket around Charlotte's shoulders, ensuring that her dignity was preserved while the immediate crisis was addressed. The jacket, designed for a man much larger than an 8-year-old girl, enveloped her completely, transforming what could have been a mortifying situation into something far more manageable. "There we are," he said gently, adjusting the jacket to ensure proper coverage while maintaining appropriate boundaries. "Now we need to get you back to your rooms so Lady can arrange a wardrobe change." But even as Commander Harrison worked to resolve the immediate crisis, he was acutely aware that they faced a larger problem. Word of the Queen's arrival had reached him through his earpiece, and he knew that she was likely making her way toward their location at that very moment. The timing could not have been worse. Princess Sophia, meanwhile, had begun to cry quietly, overwhelmed by guilt at her accidental role in the disaster. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the fountain's gentle splashing. "I didn't mean to step on your dress." Charlotte, despite her own distress, immediately moved to comfort her friend. "It's not your fault at all," she said firmly, though her voice trembled slightly. "The dress was just too delicate. These things happen." The other children remained clustered nearby, uncertain whether they should stay or leave, help or remain silent. Prince, showing wisdom beyond his 10 years, began quietly collecting the scattered pearls, while Princess offered her own sweater, though it was far too small to be of any real assistance. Commander Harrison's earpiece crackled with urgent communications. His team had been alerted to the situation and was coordinating to create a secure pathway back to the castle while maintaining discretion. More critically, they were attempting to intercept the Queen's party and buy some time for Charlotte to reach her rooms unobserved. "Your Royal Highness," Commander Harrison said quietly, "we need to move quickly but calmly. Can you walk normally while wearing my jacket?" Charlotte nodded, though the jacket's sleeves extended far beyond her hands, and its length nearly reached her ankles. Commander Harrison quickly but carefully gathered the excess fabric and secured it with his tie, creating a more manageable garment that would allow Charlotte to move without tripping. As they prepared to leave the secret garden, Charlotte paused and looked back at the rose that had started it all. Despite everything that had happened, she found herself smiling slightly at the irony. Here was a flower that had chosen to be two things at once, just as she was discovering that she could be both a princess dealing with a crisis and a little girl who sometimes faced embarrassing accidents. The group began their carefully orchestrated retreat from the secret garden, with Commander Harrison leading the way while maintaining constant communication with his team. The other children followed closely, having been quickly briefed on the need for discretion and speed. Their royal training, regardless of their young ages, had prepared them for unexpected situations, though perhaps not quite like this one. As they reached the maze's entrance, Commander Harrison received word that the Queen's party had been successfully delayed by a spontaneous meet and greet with some of the adult guests who had specifically requested a moment of her time. This bought them the precious minutes they needed to navigate the remainder of their journey to safety. The walk across the castle's main courtyard felt like the longest journey Charlotte had ever undertaken, despite Commander Harrison's reassuring presence and the protective circle formed by his security team. Every step brought the possibility of discovery, and every face they passed represented a potential witness to her embarrassing predicament. Yet somehow, with careful timing and strategic positioning, they managed to reach the castle's private entrance without incident. Lady was waiting at the private entrance, having been alerted by Commander Harrison's team about the developing situation. Her face showed no trace of panic or judgment, only the calm efficiency that had made her one of the most respected members of the royal household staff. She had already contacted the princess's personal dresser and arranged for several backup outfit options to be prepared in Charlotte's chambers. "Your Royal Highness," Lady said warmly as Charlotte approached, still wrapped in Commander Harrison's oversized jacket. "Let's get you sorted out immediately. I have 3 lovely alternatives ready for you, and we'll have you back at the party within 15 minutes. Charlotte nodded gratefully, though she could feel tears threatening to spill over. The adrenaline of the crisis was beginning to fade, replaced by the full emotional impact of what had happened. As they climbed the stairs toward her private quarters, she struggled with feelings of embarrassment, disappointment, and worry about what others might think. Commander Harrison followed at a respectful distance, his own mind racing through the incident's implications. Beyond the immediate crisis management, he was already thinking about the broader security concerns. Had the dress failure been truly accidental, or could it have been sabotage? His analytical mind rejected the sabotage theory almost immediately, but protocol required him to consider all possibilities. In Charlotte's dressing room, Sarah had laid out 3 carefully selected alternatives. The first was a simple but elegant navy blue dress with minimal decoration, chosen for its durability and comfort. The second was a soft pink ensemble with a matching cardigan, perfect for garden activities. The third was a more formal option, similar in style to the damaged dress but constructed with sturdier fabrics. "Which would you prefer, Your Highness?" Sarah asked gently, though she already suspected Charlotte's choice based on the morning's events. Charlotte didn't hesitate. "The navy one, please. I want something that won't tear if I move normally or if someone accidentally steps on it." As Sarah and Lady helped Charlotte change, the conversation naturally turned to how they should handle the situation's aftermath. Word of the incident had not yet spread beyond the immediate witnesses and security team, but in the interconnected world of royal social media and gossip networks, such secrets rarely stayed contained for long. "Should we mention it to the Queen when she arrives?" Charlotte asked, her voice small with worry. Lady considered this carefully. "I think honesty is always the best policy with Her Majesty. She understands that accidents happen, especially to active young people. What matters most is how we handle ourselves afterward." Meanwhile, back in the secret garden, the other young royals had been quietly collected by their respective guardians and security details. The scattered pearls had been carefully gathered and would later be restored to the palace jewelry collection. More importantly, each child had been gently reminded about the importance of discretion regarding their friend's unfortunate experience. Princess Sophia, still feeling responsible despite Charlotte's reassurances, had asked her own governess if there was something she could do to help. This conversation would later lead to a beautiful gesture that would transform the day's meaning entirely, though none of them knew it yet. Commander Harrison had used the time during Charlotte's wardrobe change to conduct a thorough debriefing with his security team. While the incident itself had been harmless, it highlighted several important considerations for future events. The team's response had been exemplary, but there were lessons to be learned about coordination with household staff during crisis situations. The princess handled herself with remarkable composure, he noted in his preliminary report. Her concern for her friend's feelings and her willingness to take responsibility demonstrated excellent character development. When Charlotte emerged from her chambers 15 minutes later, she looked refreshed and confident in her navy dress. The simple outfit suited her perfectly, and she moved with noticeably more freedom than she had in the elaborate morning gown. Commander Harrison was waiting to escort her back to the party, and she paused to return his uniform jacket with a formal curtsy and heartfelt thanks. "Commander Harrison," she said seriously, "thank you for helping me when I needed it most. I won't forget your kindness." "It was my honor and duty, Your Royal Highness," he replied with equal formality, though there was warmth in his eyes. "You conducted yourself with great dignity under difficult circumstances." The return journey to the garden party was markedly different from their hasty retreat. Charlotte walked with renewed confidence, her chin held high and her step light. The navy dress, while less spectacular than her original outfit, seemed to suit both her personality and the day's activities far better. As they approached the main terrace, they could hear the sounds of the party continuing in full swing. The Queen had indeed arrived and was holding court near the Rose Garden, surrounded by distinguished guests and several of the young visitors who had not participated in the Maze expedition. Laughter and conversation filled the air, creating a warm and welcoming atmosphere. Charlotte took a deep breath and stepped back into the social whirl with practiced grace. To most observers, her wardrobe change appeared to be nothing more than a practical decision to choose more suitable attire for garden activities. The elaborate morning dress had been beautiful for photographs, but the simpler afternoon outfit was clearly more appropriate for playing with friends and exploring outdoors. The Queen, with the intuition that comes from decades of experience with unexpected situations, immediately sensed that there was more to Charlotte's appearance change than met the eye. However, she also recognized that her granddaughter was handling whatever had occurred with appropriate maturity and dignity. "Charlotte, darling," the Queen said warmly as the princess approached for the traditional greeting. "What a sensible choice of dress for garden activities. You look lovely and comfortable." The simple validation meant everything to Charlotte, who curtsied deeply before being embraced in the kind of hug that only grandmothers can give. In that moment, any lingering embarrassment about the morning's incident melted away, replaced by the security that comes from unconditional love and acceptance. Princess Sophia appeared at Charlotte's side, accompanied by her own grandmother, who was carrying an exquisitely wrapped small package. The Spanish princess's eyes were bright with excitement and just a hint of nervousness as she approached her friend. "Charlotte," Sophia said formally, "my abuela helped me prepare something for you. It's not much, but I wanted you to have it." Inside the elegant wrapping was a small, hand-painted miniature portrait of the unique rose they had discovered in the secret garden. Sophia had created it herself during their brief separation, working with remarkable skill for someone her age to capture both the red and white petals in delicate watercolor strokes. "I wanted you to always remember our adventure," Sophia explained, "and the special flower that taught us about being two things at once." Charlotte was genuinely moved by the gesture, and her emotional response was immediate and heartfelt. "It's absolutely beautiful, Sophia. Thank you so much. I'll treasure it always." The exchange was witnessed by several adults, including photographer Helena, who had been documenting the party's proceedings. She recognized immediately that she was observing something far more valuable than any staged portrait, a genuine moment of friendship, forgiveness, and grace under pressure. As the afternoon progressed, the morning's dramatic events receded into memory, overshadowed by new games, conversations, and discoveries. Charlotte played with uninhibited joy, her comfortable dress allowing her to participate fully in a treasure hunt organized by the castle staff, a game of croquet on the main lawn, and even a bit of gentle climbing in the adventure playground that had been specially constructed for the day's young guests. Commander Harrison watched from his various positions throughout the afternoon, nodding with professional satisfaction and personal pride how completely Charlotte had recovered from the morning's crisis. Her resilience and ability to find joy in simple pleasures reflected not just good training, but genuine character strength that would serve her well throughout her royal duties. As the party began to wind down and guests prepared for their departures, Charlotte found herself reflecting on the day's unexpected lessons. The elaborate dress that had seemed so important that morning had proven to be more hindrance than help. The simple navy dress that had rescued her afternoon was far less impressive, but infinitely more practical. More importantly, she had learned about the kindness of others in times of need. Commander Harrison's instant response, Lady calm efficiency, Sophia's thoughtful gift, and the Queen's understanding acceptance had all combined to transform what could have been a humiliating experience into something that actually strengthened relationships and taught valuable lessons. Years later, Princess Charlotte would often tell the story of the day her dress ripped at the garden party, though she always emphasized not the embarrassing accident, but the remarkable people who helped her through it. The incident became family legend not as a cautionary tale about delicate fabrics and formal wear, but as an example of grace under pressure, and the importance of surrounding oneself with loyal, quick-thinking people who can turn potential disasters into opportunities for growth. Commander Harrison remained with Princess Charlotte's security detail for many more years, eventually becoming one of her most trusted advisors as she grew into her royal role. The navy dress was carefully preserved and would eventually be displayed in a private royal collection, labeled simply as a dress that taught the importance of practicality and the value of true friendship. Sophia's watercolor painting found a place of honor in Charlotte's private study, where it served as a daily reminder that sometimes the most meaningful gifts come from the heart rather than the jeweler's shop. The unusual rose in the secret garden continued to bloom each spring, producing its remarkable two-toned flowers and inspiring visitors with its lesson about embracing complexity and finding beauty in unexpected combinations. The day that began with such promise descended into potential disaster and ultimately rose to become one of Charlotte's most cherished memories, taught her that true royalty lies not in never making mistakes or facing embarrassing moments, but in how one responds to unexpected challenges with dignity, grace, and appreciation for those who offer help in times of need.